Okay, good evening. I'm going to do something a little bit different in the sense that I would like to share with you a number of different insights, specifically on the Brochos, number of relatively short insights on the Brochos of Bilam. And I'm giving some beautiful insights, which I think help us enhance our understanding and hopefully ideas that can be used and relayed and shared as Divrei Torah. Near the beginning, when Bilam sets out what he is about to do. He says, Balak has encouraged me to come, and he asked me to curse. But he says, how can I curse what Hashem has not cursed? Hashem, how can I be angry or strike with anger when Hashem has not been angry? And then the next pasuk is pasuk test, because I see it from the literally from the top of the rocks. I behold it from the hills. It's the idea that people that dwells alone are not counted amongst the nations. Rashi says on this pasuk, Rashi says, I look at their elders, their heads, I go back right to the beginning. The idea of Merosh Tzurim Erenu is that at the beginning they are founded with rocks, Tzur, right? The idea that the start, the foundation of our people is based on incredibly strong foundations. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that's Merosh Tzurim. Rav Hirsch gives a different pshat, and he highlights the difference between in the words in the language here. Ki Merosh Tzurim Erenu, I see it. Then there's another word used for seeing, Ashurenu. Shur is also a word for perception, for perceiving, for seeing, right? Mirosh Tzurim Erenu, he says, means when I see it from a vantage point, a high vantage point, it looks near, right? The idea, he says, is like this: distances shrink from a high vantage point, right? In other words, if you're looking at something from a bird's eye view, the distance shrinks in the sense that you can see a lot more. And the point that's being made in this pasuk is that time is the same. Time is the same as distance, in the sense that if you look at time, if you look at history from an elevated perspective, up above, right, as opposed to close up, then you see a lot more. If you survey centuries in one go, you get a much broader perspective. You can, so to speak, shrink time. The perspective shrinks. Just like if you're flying over something and you have a bird's eye view, you see, you see the whole place. I can understand it now. The same thing is with time. If you stand on the ground, you stand at the present reality, then things seem distant from one another. So he says that shur, what does it mean? A mikvois ashurenu. Shur means a far-reaching view and being able to see what others fail to see. Okay, it's the origin of this word, or another place where we have it's an unusual word, is in the Brochos of Yaakov Avinu, right? Yaakov Avinu in Vayechi, Perek Mem Tes Brochos of Bilam. It says, "Bonos tsoado ali shur," that they stepped to look, to gaze, right? Yosef, that's what Pasuk's talking about, right? Right, by Ben Peras Yosef, right? Bonos ali shur. So that's what it means. It means to gaze or to look. But the specific, he understands it as a mikvoas hashurenu means I have a far-reaching view, and therefore the idea that's being expressed here is that Bilam is saying, I can see this people, and I see that the way to understand them, the way to look at them, has to be a far-reaching perspective. They will achieve their potential, but it's not today. In other words, you've got to have a wide view of history, just like you have a wide view of place. The benefit of seeing something from far away means that distance shrinks and I can see much more. Similarly, to have a long view of history, it means that we can see, you can see what their future will be. I think it actually ties in very nicely with Rashi. You know, Rashi says, he's saying Mirosh Surim Erenu. I go right back to the beginning. A mikvois hashurenu, maybe according to that, is a far reaching into the future. So maybe it ties in very nicely with Rashi, right? The one is the past, perhaps, and one is the future, right? The idea being that either way, it's a far-reaching perspective. And I think that the message that we understand from Rav Hirsch's pshat is that everything depends on your perspective. Everything depends on your perspective. And in order to understand certain things, specifically things that are sensitive in a spiritual sense, in a ruchnius, you need to have the broader perspective. You cannot just have what it looks like here and now, what I see now. I've got to see something much broader. And that's how, to understand the mission that we have as a people, you need to be able to have that broad perspective. And maybe that also ties in with the next idea I want to share with you, which is an idea of the Netziv in Hamik Dover. The Netziv has a beautiful pshat on the next half of the pasuk. Hen om levodod yishkoin, v'vagoyim lo yischashov. It's a people that dwells alone, and it's not counted amongst. He's not counted amongst the nations. Hen om levodod yishkoin. So, what is the idea? The idea, we simply understand that we live alone. Either you could understand that in the sense that we always have to live alone. We're forced to live alone. We have to go our own path because often so many disagree with us, with ourselves. Or Rashi seems to imply that as well. It's in the second pshat. He says, when they rejoice, there's no nation that rejoices with them. Well, it's down to us alone, right? Hashem bodod yanchenu, like it says in Devarim. That's how Rashi understands it. And the Netziv says like this. He says that derech kol umma v'loshen, the way of every people, every nation, when they go into an exile, they get mixed up amongst the nation. They've gone to exile. They've exiled into. And as a result, they receive a certain sense of prestige in their eyes more than if they were separate. Klal Yisrael is different. When it's bodod, and it's not misarev, don't mix with the nations. Yishkoin, we dwell, right? When we are bodod, then yishkoin. Then we dwell with a sense of rest, tranquility, honor. Then we are honored. Because of the idea of rol kolami oretz kashem Hashem nekor alecha. When we're proud of who we are in Golus, when we're proud of who we are in exile, everyone respects us. If we are bodod, then hen om levodod yishkoin. Then we dwell in security. Then we dwell in stability. People respect us. Uvagoyim, okay. But when we want to mix with everyone else, we're bagoyim. We want to be like everyone else. Lo yischashov. We don't end up getting any chashivas. We don't end up getting any recognition or significance in their eyes to be considered important, to be considered significant, right? In other words, if we desire and we think that the answer to our stability in exile is to be mixed up, uvagoyim, to be mixed up, lo yischashav. We're not going to be considered to be choshev for that reason. He says that of course he brings a medrash in Shmos Rabbah that when Klal Yisrael went exiling in Mitzrayim and Golus in Mitzrayim didn't perform bris milah. Why? Why didn't they perform bris milah then? Why was it that only at the end they did bris milah? Because they thought that since they're in Golus, better not to be different, better to be the same as everyone else, right? But of course, it was the opposite. It was the extreme opposite. They made them so different. They made them so distinct from the Mitzrayim through the Shiva and Mitzrayim. Okay, and he says the idea is that if you've got an independent identity and you lose that identity, then you lose your respect as well. You lose people. If you don't have self-respect for who you are, then you lose respect in the eyes of others as well. Yeah, and that's the message of Heinam levodod yishkon of Agoyim lo yischashav. Bodod, you dwell alone. You dwell alone. You will be respected of Agoyim. But if you mix up in the Goyim lo yischashav, you won't be considered significant. Or as it was once put, I can't remember who said this. If there's a famous line. If the Jew doesn't make kiddush, then others will make havdalah over it, right? You're not mekadosh yourself, then people will end up making havdalah over you and showing that you're different, right? This is how it is. It always has been thus.
You always said,
yeah.
If you don't keep your own halachas, how can you expect us to get rid of it?
Yeah, we have to have a sense of that respect for what we are and who we are. Yeah. Mimona offer Yaakov. Next pasuk, pasuk Yud. It says, Mimona Afar Yaakov, who can count the dust of Yaakov? The question is, what is the significance of dust? Rashi says, an interesting Rashi, in the Dova Acha, the second explanation of Rashi is, Afar Yaakov, dust of Yaakov, Ein Cheshbon, the mitzvah stream of Kaim offer. There's no limit, he says, to the number of mitzvahs that we perform with dust. Lo sachosh b'shova chamor, right? Not to plow with the dogs and the donkey. Lo sizra kilayim, not to plant, sow with kilayim. Efer para, the ashes of the para. Okay, that's ashes rather than yeah, but there's a whole efer offer sota, the offer of the sota. Okay, so therefore, mimona after who can count the mitzvahs that are performed with dust? Seems a bit difficult to understand, right? What's the significance of dust? Why has that got a specific? Why is that singled out by Bilam? Sorry, for significance. The Shem Shmuel says like this. He says that the Shem Shmuel says like this, that the whole idea of these Rishaim, Bilam and Balak, was to separate, so to speak, the Gashmius, the physical world, that there should be no spiritual element to it at all, no chelek ruchani, no spiritual infusion in the physical world that we live in. And Klal Yisrael can help themselves to any real spirituality, that's okay, but don't interfere with us. Don't interfere with our world. That's what they wanted to achieve, right? Okay, let them stay. Bilam is very happy, right? Interesting. And Balak is very happy for Klal Yisrael to stay, eating them on ensconced in the Ananei Kovet. He's happy with that. It doesn't bother him. What bothers him? He says V'agorshenu min haaretz. He wants to drive them away from the land. Don't enter Eretz Yisrael. Stay where you are. If you stay in the Midbar, that's okay. It's when you start trying to take these values, to take the essence of spirituality, and bring it into my physical world, that's what I don't want, right? He says at the beginning of the Pasha, I want to drive him away from the land, okay, from the land. What does what is the whole idea though? What is the essence of what we stand for? The essence of what we stand for as a people is the exact opposite: to live in the Oretz, in this world, not to remain on the purely spiritual level, but to bring the ruchnias, to bring the spirituality into the physical world. That's the whole idea. To be mekadesh, the chomer ha'oretz, the base elements of the world. That's the whole idea. So, therefore, the message is: you take the lowest element in creation, you take the dust of the earth, and we emphasize the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us so many mitzvahs, even with that, not to plow in a certain way, to use it for the Parah Duma. All these things are designed to highlight to highlight that the essence of all the mitzvahs is to bring a sense of spirituality into the most physical aspects of the physical world. And that stands in direct opposition to what Balak and Bilam stand for. The last thing they want is us interfering, if you like, with that physical world. You keep yourself separate, that's fine. We don't want you coming near the land. We don't want you bringing values that from the Torah and disturbing this world, so to speak. But of course, that's what we stand for. So when the brachas are expressed from Bilam's mouth, Mimona ofar Yaakov, who can count the dust of Yaakov? In other words, who can count, right, the ability for us to even infuse the most base things in this world and the basic elements, the dust of the world, we can infuse with a spiritual purpose. That's the Shem Mishmor. Chof Gimel Chof Aleph, Perach Chof Gimel Pasuk Chof Aleph, Lo Yibit Ovim Yaakov. So this pasuk is a pasuk which needs to be understood very carefully, and especially in the context of the next pasuk as well. These are difficult pasukim to understand, difficult pasukim to learn, and to try and appreciate the meaning. Rashi understands, at least Rashi's first pshat is to follow the Targum, that those who worship Avodah Zarah don't exist amongst Klal Yisrael, and also those who, if you like, worship Sheker, falsehood, right? The idea being that we only are connected to Hashem. Now, Rav Hirsch says like this. He says, Oven is effectively a bit Oven, right? Oven is translated by we translate it almost like a sin, basically, right? Oven is translated, even though it's with an aleph, right? A bit Oven. Certainly that's how Rashi, the Targum, understands it based on Rashi, and the second Pshat in Rashi also, he understands it as a transgression, and they're over in Al Devorah, Rashi says, right? Rav Hirsch says that what Oven really is, it's the misuse of power. Oven can mean power, property. That's what it means. Okay, so le'ibit Oven. In other words, there's a specific meaning to the word Oven related to power. It's misuse of power. That's what it means. And so Oin is giving strength. Oin is giving strength to the people. But before Hashem gives any nation something, he looks at them and sees, how will they use this? Will they use it well, or will they abuse it? Will they abuse it? Lo hibit Oven b'Yaakov means Hashem looked and worked out, so to speak, whether giving them strength in a certain way, an area, would lead to Oven. Would Oin, power, become Oven, become something wrong? Yeah, that's the idea, right? He did not see any misuse. There would be any misuse of the greatness that they were destined for, and therefore he gave them that greatness. He didn't see there would be any misuse of power amongst Klal Yisrael. And therefore, there was no need to bring a hard struggle. That's what omol means, hard struggle. Okay. In other words, there was no need to bring struggle to prevent him achieving that, to prevent them becoming proud, so to speak, right? There was no need to struggle against kind of like obstacles, the way he puts it, obstacles to success. L'ra omol b'Yisrael. Okay? Now, Hashem Elokovim says, Hashem is his God, is with him, meaning that Hashem is with us the whole time, accompanying us wherever we go. Truas melech boy. What does truas melech boy mean? True, of course, we understand as the shofar, but he says, when used in reference to Hashem, it means a complete submission, complete connection. That's what trua means. So truas melech boy is connected to Hashem Elokov Imah. It means that within us there is a connection to Hashem. That's what it means. We connect to Hashem. We communicate with Hashem. We pay homage to Hashem. He suggests that truas melech boy, it almost supplies the cause. Hashem Elokovim Loi, Hashem is with him, with Klal Yisrael, because Truas Melech Boy, because deep within our hearts is that connection, okay? It is trua by definition, and this fits with the whole essence of the shofar. Trua is an emotional agitation, it's a feeling within the heart, right? Why is Hashem Elokovim? Because Truas Melech Boy, because the trua is there, because the connection is there, the emotional attachment, that's what's going on. And with this, we can understand, says Rav Hirsch, the next pasuk, the connection. What does it mean? Kel Motziom Mitzrayim, Kasafos Ra'im Loi. What does that mean? Kel Motziom Mitzrayim, Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim, like the Toyafos Ra'im is like Rashi says it's the strength, the great strength and power. Toyafos, that it's like the ascending power of the Ra'im. The Ra'im is like a type of very powerful. It could mean it's a particular reference to a very type of strong, powerful animal. Either way, with horns or whatever. Kel Motziom Mitzrayim, we were all disparate, loosely knit, right? Not connected in that way, multitude. And without that, and we weren't able to help ourselves. What did Hashem do? He made us into Loi, one nation, one united nation. It says Loi in the singular. Right? The Loi is Klal Yisrael, become it, one single nation. Hashem liberates us from Mitzrayim without any action on our part. Okay? That is the same HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who leads us to the sense of power and independence. And but it's all something we don't have to seek. We don't have to apply any physical or spiritual strength. It's given to us by Hashem. The privilege of achieving the position that we achieve as a nation, becoming a great and mighty nation, requires only one thing. In other words, how do we get to this idea of Toyafos Ra'im, the strength and ascending power of the mighty Ra'im? How do we get to that position? Only because of one thing, because Truas Melech Boy, because we keep far away from the misuse of power, Oven, right? The Oven, right? Lo Yibit Oven B'Yakov, because we don't abuse our position, we don't use the privileges we've been given to abuse that power, and because Truas Melech Boy, because the Trua, the ability, we demonstrate the fact that we are committed emotion, the Trua connection to Hashem, right? We demonstrate that through keeping far away from abusing the power. That's all that's required. And then that power is given to us directly from Hashem. Kel Motziom Mitzrayim. Hashem takes us out of Mitzrayim. He gives us that position, gives us that strength. All he requires of us is that we don't abuse it. That's all. By the way, we don't abuse it, and and that lack of abuse and that making sure that we use it for the right reasons is simply because and is inspired by the connection, the direct connection that we have with him. Turn to Brochos of Bilam, Pasuk Hey, Matovo Elecha Yaakov. There is a beautiful pshat from the Olas Re'iyah, I believe it's Perish Cook, says like this: Matovo Elecha Yaakov Mishkan Yisacha Yisrael. What are the two sides? The two parts. The Tovo Alecha, your tents, and Mishkan Yisacha Yisrael. Of course, there's many different famous pshatim. Rashi, Rashi, right? They're not facing one another. Mishkan Yisacha and Yisacha, right? Your encampments, yeah. Different pshatim is the Shiloh and Beis Salom and the Beis Hamikdash. There's lots of different ideas in terms of the two different aspects of this pasuk. Cook says like this, that there are two sides to spiritual growth in life, to achievement in life, to actually growing in ruchnis. There are two things, right? Two fundamental foundational principles. One is to always have a she'ifa. You know what a she'ifa is? You have to have a she'ifa. A she'ifa means you want to get somewhere. You want to grow. You have to want to grow. You have to be on an upward trajectory. You have to want to get somewhere. If you don't want to get somewhere, you want to stay the same as you are in life, then you will never get anywhere. You have to have she'ifas. You have to have ambition in a spiritual sense. That's really what she'ifa means, right? Ambitions, okay? he says, "La'alos el al b'malos hakodesh," to steig, to grow in kedusha, to increase chokhmah, right? To always to live in a spiritual way, to live with knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to understand how to make sure that we live in a way that is sensitive to kedusha. That's one aspect you need, but there's another one that's just as important. He says the second aspect is stability. You have to also be able to have a quality of protecting where you are. Shomer es hamatzah, he calls it, right? To protect the stage that you are so that you don't fall, you don't lose it, you don't fall lower, right? It's not good enough just to always have the she'ifa to grow. You also have to have stability in life. You have to have, I reach a certain place and it's stable. I'm here. I know where I am. I know what I am. I'm fixed. I've got values and those values don't change. And that's equally important. We often think of just the first one, right? Well, I've got to grow. I want to grow in life. I want to start. I want to do more. I want to do more. I want to learn more. I want to do more. Okay, fine. That's all very good. But if you don't have the quality of stability, yeah, then everything can fall apart. You've also got to be still. I've got to know what I do. These are my values, right? I've got principles. I've got values, and we don't break them. That's what we stand for as a people. Okay. So he says that tochen, that stability, that fundamental stability, which protects you where you are, that allows the desire to grow to work, to be able to grow. You've got a place of menucha, of rest, of tranquility to be able to grow from. Without it, you haven't got anything. And he says that if you look carefully at this pasuk, both elements are represented by each half of the pasuk. Matovu oyhalecho Yaakov. What is an oyhel? What is an oyhel? An oyhel, by definition, is a tent. It's something that moves. It doesn't stay in one place. That's what it is. An oyhel represents the idea of movement, okay? Change, aliyah. I want to grow. I want to steig. I want to improve. I want to increase things that I do in life, okay? Spiritually. Mishkan, okay? Fundamentally, what is the Mishkan? When was the Mishkan set up? The Mishkan is set up when they rest. That's what Mishkan represents. The Mishkan represents stability. In a world of complete change and flux, right? When they're moving, the Mishkan is packed away. It only exists in a set up form, in a usable form, when they stop. So the Mishkan represents, and Shochem means to dwell, obviously, right? So Mishkan represents stability. That's the yesod of menucha, of rest, between each place you go in life, each station you go, every masa, all the masa'os. You go from place to place to place, but you have a sense of stability when you can rest. And he says that it is only the two elements together that allow us to succeed, right? Only with the two things together are we able to achieve what we need to achieve in life. We'll be able to have that with the growth and the desire to grow in ruchnius will only be possible if we also have the middle of stability as well. We can also be able to be stable in where we are, keep those values strong. You need both the oil and the mishkan. You need the moving tent, the thing which carries us around, and you need the mishkan which appreciates stability where we are. One final idea in terms of from Hirsch, in terms of growth and stability, is found at the end of the very end of the parsha, not near the parsha, end of the Brochos, sorry. Perek Chof Daled, Posuk Yud-Ches, and well, actually, it's really from Yud Zayin. There's the idea of the scepter, the Kom Shevet Miyisrael, right? And when Balak has the nevuah that's right in the future, Erenu v'lo'ata, I see it not here. Again, the word Ashurenu, that word again, right? It's not near, v'lo karev, it's far away. It's a vision into the future. Dorach Kochel Miyakov, Kom Shevet Miyisrael, the scepter, right? The idea of the scepter of Yisrael. Says Rav Hirsch, if you take that in your mind and you think of and you look at Pasuk Yotes, it says V'yered Miyakov, he will rule from out of Yaakov, V'hevid Sorid Me'ir, and it will cause the last remnant to be lost from the city. What does it mean, the city? The is an absolute, there's a definite object. It doesn't say cities, it doesn't say city, it says the city. V'hevid Sorid Me'ir, what is the city? So he says, the city represents the worship of culture and the worship of the culture of the city. the beginning of the historical development that led to the worship of mankind, as opposed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right at the beginning, you look back in Bereshis, the city, Es Ha'ir ve'es HaMigdal, right? They build Asher Bonu b'nei Odom, Migdal Bova, they build a city, right? The city carries with it immense danger. Why? Because when mankind start building cities and civilizations, what happens? They start self-worshipping, aggrandizement. We can build a Migdal, we can reach Shemayim, we can do anything. We are all powerful, right? That's the problem. That's the problem. That vision is immensely dangerous. It leads to the worship of mankind, what we call today humanism, right? The idea of that which, the idea of worshiping mankind as opposed to Chasron worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the idea of Dorach Kochov Yaakov, what will this, and the Shevet, what does the Shevet do? In the future, the Hevid Sorid Meir. That idea, that self, the idea that that man, the worship of man, this humanistic idea and the hubris that comes out of the city, yeah, you with me, right? That will be lost. That will be removed through, says Rav Hirsch, ultimately one day, the vision of the Shevet from Yaakov, the rod of Yaakov, the scepter. That will remove this idea of worship of mankind and instead lead to complete understanding and service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I hope you can take and use some of these ideas over Shabbos. I wish you all a very good Shabbos. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming.